Brian, you were on the sideline last week for the catch made by Kennan Pula that had Sports Center and everyone's jaw on the floor. Walk me through your vantage point of the play heard across the sports world.
Well, I had actually gone up to the press box for the second half of that game and spent most of the game on the sideline. So it was a little bit different in the sense of like I literally saw it from a bird's eye view, and even from that far above, it was just one of those places like, wait, what just happened?
Mm-hmm.
And everyone around, just the reactions, you couldn't help but just be in shock and awe from a play like that. Mostly because you don't expect that kind of athleticism. In the sense of like you don't expect a high school player to have that kind of ability. You definitely don't expect a defender to have that kind of ability, and absolutely don't see a high school defender having that kind of ability. And I think Kyle Whittingham said it best. It's one of the best plays that he's ever seen.
I totally agree. Just leaping up middle of the field, making an unreal interception. And he is a current Utah Utes commit, and he got on Sports Center. Like, he's just had a ton of interviews and press for him, which is just awesome. And it's great to see a Utah commit getting that much love, because there are, surprisingly, Brian, only 4 commits from the state of Utah that are committed to currently go to the University of Utah. And one of them we just mentioned, Kennan Pula, technically, according to 24/7 Sports, is not even the best player in his own family. Jaron Pula is currently a 4-star wide receiver, rated a little bit higher than him. But you got the Pula twins, you got Benjamin from Lehigh as well, you got Galia, the Orem cornerback as well too. There's only 4 of them right now, but what do you make of the kids from Utah who are committed to the University of Utah in this class?
I think Utah's done a good job of rescuing. We'll call it a rescue mission, because that's really what it's been. Is they've had to rescue the in-state class, and I think Matali Benjamin, Lee Benjamin, as he's more colloquially, not even going to try it, as he's more well known amongst the high school community. He is a good long-term prospect, but you also have. I call him the transporter, the transformer, Kelvin Obot in that class. And so when you have a 5-star tackle and a 3-star, that's a good place to be in, right? Because you can push your 5-star a little bit further up, and you can say save Lee Benjamin to develop down the road. And I think Keith Olson's getting a lot of time for the University of Utah up front, and I mentioned Toa Moiai. So those guys are getting development, so he's going to get development. And I actually think that the offensive line situation is in a lot better straits than people maybe believe for next year. We'll see. You do have to replace 5 starters. That's a lot. But I also think that a lot of the guys that are playing now and a lot of guys that are going to see action moving forward can be really good as well. That being said, they are losing the in-state battle. And I don't think there's any way to overlook that. BYU is winning, and there's a lot of in-state kids that Utah's overlooked. I've campaigned pretty hard for Traden Bessinger over the last few months, and he's going to Iowa. And I get it, because he is not the prototypical quarterback in terms of what Utah's been recruiting, right? He doesn't look like Bird Ficklin or Devin Dampier. He's not an absolute weapon in the run game, but I'll save my spiel, but I think that's one of those guys that I am curious how a guy that talented and that good leaves the state of Utah without even an offer from the flagship university. That being said, I think the Pula twins are legit. That's got to be the crown jewel of this class. If you can steer them through the finish, and look, it's awesome that Kennan's getting all this attention. It's well deserved. There are a lot of people that believe that he's better as a safety than he is as a wide receiver. I think there is a legitimate sibling rivalry between the two of them that leads to him playing wide receiver a little bit. And if you could leverage that, maybe you get more highlight plays for him. From him in Rice-Eccles Stadium, but you have to make sure that you land those two as part of the class. When I watch them as wide receivers, I'm not saying that this is the exact comp, but I see Puka Nacua and the similarities there in terms of the ability to make highlight plays, move the chains, all that kind of stuff. So you have to land those two. Just end of story. And I think that Utah's dedicated to that. I really like Isa Galliai. He does a lot of various things for Orem. He runs the football. He plays defensively in a lot of different places. I think he's probably a safety for the University of Utah in terms of fit, and I think he's a good fit in that regard. You look at what Alakai Gilman was able to do, and some of the other great safeties. He fits into that mold really well. But I think Utah still has to fill out this class, and I think they really do need to find a way to, if they're not going to make any waves at the end with the 2026 class locally, they really need to dedicate themselves to 2027.
Well, how about still some local guys in 26, Brian? This is the last week of high school football in the state of Utah. Big sad for both of us. But there are tons of guys who have been flying under the radar all season long, who are a couple of the guys that Utah could scoop up. You mentioned earlier, right? This isn't the most talented Utah football team, but they get the most out of their recruiting and development. Who are some of the guys in the state right now that are being overlooked nationally that the Utah Utes need to bring on in and hope maybe they can become one of the next star players on this Utah team that hopefully helps them overcome whatever 4 and 5 stars are on the other side of the field?
Yeah, I think a lot of what you're talking about is you're not just building depth in terms of rostering guys who can start, but you're also building depth in terms of guys who come in and practice hard and play hard and can give your team a look, right? I think that's part of development and part of what makes them great, and some guys that I think that can really do that for the University of Utah and within a couple of years could be starters. Jagger Nieves from San Juan is one of those guys that immediately pops to mind, and he's a big bruising running back, but we have this weird schism, I think, towards running backs from the state of Utah, where listen. I'm not going to say that Jagger's on the same level as Wayshawn Parker. Wayshawn Parker's an NFL guy. There's just no doubt about it. But he's really, really good. And I think he's a guy that could give you a look. And 2A players, 3A players are kind of one of those things where people get a little bit nervous. But there was a guy a few years back that, I wondered if maybe he could make an impact at the next level, and kind of honked my horn a little bit and said, hey, man, this kid – Delta High School, he's pretty good. Maybe he could be a safety, and boy, was I wrong on that, because he's a great quarterback, and that's Bryson Barnes. So, Jagger Nieves is a guy that I really look at. I think a guy that really is flying incredibly under the radar for everybody is Jesse Simmons from Woods Cross, and part of that is because he's an option quarterback. He is huge. He's like 6'3", 210, and he's legit that size. He runs like a deer. Very, very rarely is he ever tackled in the open field, and he has an arm like you wouldn't believe. Now, granted, he's an option quarterback, so the fact that he's averaging 27 yards per completion gets downplayed by the fact that he's only completing like 7 passes a game. But that entire Woods Cross roster has some guys that I would be like, hey, come look at these guys, because I think they're one of those football teams that goes under the radar because they do run triple option. But Jesse Simmons is a legit tight end at the next level, 100%, hands down. Like, you guys think that Hunter Andrews is great, Jesse Simmons could be every single bit that player. So he's a guy that I always point at. There's a slew of guys that Utah could go after. There's a corner at Corner Canyon, which, how repetitive does that sound? That they should definitely take a look at. That's escaping my mind right now. Zay Morris is a wide receiver from Corner Canyon that's only played in a couple games this year, but he's been extremely good in those few games and put up some massive numbers. Kai Meza flipped his commitment to Cal. That was a tough thing to see, because I think Kai Meza could have been one of those guys for Utah that could come in and be, a Ryan Davis type receiver. And that's, that's the part about the state of Utah, is it doesn't have the elite wide receiver talent. You don't have Pulas on every single roster. But there are guys out there that you can definitely go after and get that can get the job done. Joaquin Rodriguez is the name of the corner at Corner Canyon. We'll say defensive back, just because I'm already having a hard enough time talking tonight. But yeah, there's a lot of those kinds of guys, and I mean, I could go for hours about all the guys in state, but Jagger and Jesse Simmons are two guys that I really wanted to talk about, because I think they've been outstanding. Trip Palmer is another guy at San Juan that could be a really good player. Zachary Oxborough is another one. There's a wide receiver at Springville that is now Edwards, I believe is his name, and he's outstanding too. So it's just like I said, there's a lot of talent in state that Utah can go after, and they've done it in years past and done a pretty dang good job. I mean, Jackson Benny was not on anybody's
No,
radar for a very long time, and I think that's worked out for everybody involved.
it has worked out for everyone involved. There are a lot of elite level players in this class that are ranked and high up there. And you mentioned a lot of them going to BYU, unfortunately, too. But there are tons of under the radar guys as there are every year in the state that end up making a big difference when they get to the next level. So Utah needs to find those guys. Today's episode of Locked On Utes is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. Keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. You can head to FanDuel.com today and sign up to play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And it's not just the NBA, NHL, NFL, college basketball. We got it all over at FanDuel. College football, of course. And speaking of college football, Utah Utes, pretty big favorites over Kansas State, 16.5 points. Honestly, part of me is like, man, that is a lot. But at the same time, Kansas State is having a rough year. They've got to win one of these final two games just to get bowl eligible still. So I like this Utah team, and they're blowing everyone else out. So they very well might do it again. But however you're feeling this game, you can head over to FanDuel Sportsbook today.